o'clock. I'm going to call to order this May 20th, 2024 Select Board meeting and notify everybody that Chelmsford Telemedia is broadcasting this meeting live and also recording it for later rebroadcast. If you would join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up is Regina Jackson, and we're going to read a proclamation for Memorial Day.
The Town of Chelmsford Proclamation in recognition of Memorial Day, May 27th, 2024. Whereas Memorial Day, May 27th, 2024, has been set aside as the annual day of remembrance for those men and women who served our nation during times of conflict as members of the armed forces. And whereas we pause this day to especially remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice of their lives to defend the freedom of all Americans. And whereas we honor the service and sacrifice of all veterans of all wars and conflicts and join the living veterans of the town of Chelmsford in expressing our gratitude to their fallen comrades. Now, therefore, we, the Chelmsford Select Board, do hereby proclaim Monday, May 27th, 2024, as Memorial Day 2024, and join all residents of the town in recognizing the deceased veterans of Chelmsford on this solemn day. And Regina, this is for you, this one.
Thank you so much. Just want everyone to know that next Monday, May 27th, is Memorial Day. So in Chelmsford this year, we will be observing it in North Chelmsford. We will have a parade. It'll start at the American Legion Post 313, which is 90 Groton Road. The step-off time for the parade is 10 a.m. So we ask anybody who would like to be in the parade, especially all the scouts and anybody that would like to join us, to please assemble about 9:30 at the American Legion Post, and we will walk down to Vinyl Square, where we will have a program immediately following, as soon as we all get there. And after the program, everyone will be invited over to the North Town Hall Community Center for ice cream and cake and some community time. So we just want everyone to know everyone's invited, and hopefully we'll see you all there next Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next to Pride Month proclamation, and I think we have somebody here to receive that also. Okay.
So the Town of Chelmsford Proclamation, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, June 2024. Whereas the Town of Chelmsford is a welcoming community and an exceptional place to live, learn, work, play, and raise a family. And whereas Chelmsford recognizes the importance of equality and freedom, and whereas the nation was founded upon and is guided by a set of principles that includes that every person has been created equal, that each has their rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that each shall be accorded the full recognition and protection of law. And whereas the Town of Chelmsford, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community are a vital part of all fields and professions and contribute to a stronger community. And whereas the Town of Chelmsford is dedicated to fostering acceptance of all its citizens and preventing discrimination and bullying based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And whereas Chelmsford is strengthened by and thrives upon the rich diversity of ethnic, cultural, racial, gender, and sexual identities of its residents, all of which contribute to the vibrant character of our town. And whereas the Centers for Disease Control recognizes that LGBTQ plus teens are at higher risk to be victims of violence and have increased suicide rates. And whereas it is imperative that young people in the community, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, feel safe, valued, empowered, and supported by their peers, educators, and community leaders. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board, and on behalf of the Town of Chelmsford, hereby proclaim and recognize June 2024 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month in the Town of Chelmsford, and urge citizens to recognize and celebrate the contributions made by members of the LGBTQ community and to actively promote the principles of equality and liberty. I have a proclamation for you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, I would. Everyone can hear me okay? Okay. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Holly Kadabowski, and I am the 2023 to 2024 president of PRISM, Chelmsford High School's GSA, or Gender Sexuality Alliance. With me, I have Treasurer Aurora Pancel. I'd like to thank the Chelmsford Select Board and the Chair of the Select Board, Pat Wojcik, Maura Snow of Rainbow Chelmsford, Jen Melanson of the Department of Community Services, our advisor, Julie Gonzalez, who is not here right now. She recently had a baby and is out on maternity leave. And our current advisor, Jessica Ferranetti. In the past, we've taken up several ventures, including educational programs for staff and students, presentations during Plus Blocks, workshops, projects, and general conversations that all focus on queer issues, identities, and experiences. In our final weeks of school, we are planning our annual Pride Party. Pride Month exists to celebrate queer identities that have been and has been used as a time to encourage acceptance and work towards equality. This is the goal of our club as well. We encourage all these things through the success of queer people. Historically, this form of success has been nearly impossible. We have been forced to conform to antiquated notions of social cohesion under threat of violence, arrest, or ostracization. But in our modern worlds, and with the work of leaders who have come before, we no longer have to wish for success. We have only expectation to break, and they are breaking. This ceremony is a symbol of that. The plaque of social dogma cannot exist forever. I refuse to live in a world where I succeed in spite of my gender and sexuality. I will succeed with it. It is this sentiment that we aspire to, not only as a club, but as queer people. We build on each other's strengths, organize, work, and educate. Pride Month is celebrated to prove that we are as worthy of acceptance as straight and cisgendered people. With this, we are able to forge a connection with a society that only began to accept us, to join broken ground and find equal footing for us all. We join together not because we need to feel safe, but to find security we can gather with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. A few more.
Other announcements we have, the Health Department welcomes you to join in a walking group on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail every second and fourth Tuesday, May through September, from 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. They meet at the 110 ball fields at the intersection of Fletcher and Chelmsford Street. Please wear comfortable clothing. If you have questions, you can contact the Chelmsford Health Department. Also from the Health Department, we have a community wellness series. Let's talk about mental health, supporting the well-being of the LGBTQIA+ youth. This is Tuesday, May 21st, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Chelmsford Public Library. And next we have another announcement from the Chelmsford Health Department. It is regarding a caregiver series, understanding the stress associated with caring for children with significant needs. It starts Thursday, May 9th, and it is free. And it's May 9th, May 16th, May 23rd, and May 30th at the Chelmsford Public Library, McCarthy Meeting Room, from 6 to 7 p.m. We also have an announcement about the Chelmsford Market on the Common, the Artisan and Farmers Market. It's going to start on May 25th and will be every Saturday until October 12th from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. And another announcement from the Chelmsford Health Department, there is a free youth mental health first aid training for parents, educators, and all community members. This is on May 30th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Chelmsford Town Hall in the Fire Training Room at 50 Billerica Road. For more information, you can contact the Chelmsford Health Department. The Chelmsford Center for the Arts has an announcement on June 1st at 9 a.m. They are having a family-friendly character drag brunch. Tickets are $15 for kids, $25 for adults. And for more information, you can look at chelmsfordarts.org. Also at the Chelmsford Market on the Common, we have an announcement regarding celebrating Pride at the Market on June 1st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It says, join us for facts about LGBTQ plus history, resources, health disparities, free goodies, and fun.
I skipped one. You want to go back to the?
And there's a children's bike parade at 1 p.m.
They were in the wrong order in the packet. You're okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Also, at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, we have a celebration, a drag show that is adults only. Tickets are $20, seniors are $10, and this is going to be June 1st from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And you can buy tickets at chelmsfordarts.org. In other news, the town of Chelmsford is hosting a municipal open house. Become more engaged in your community. If you're interested in getting involved in what our different committees and boards do, this is a great place to get some questions answered and find your place in our municipal government. It is at the Chelmsford Public Library on June 12th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And representatives from many of the boards and committees in town will be there to tell you about their roles and how you can help. And last, we have, for immediate release, the Chelmsford's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is celebrating the 4th annual Juneteenth event on June 22nd from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Chelmsford's Town Common. All are invited to join in this commemoration of freedom and unity. In the event of rain, the event will move to Chelmsford Senior Center at 75 Groton Road. There is no admission fee. And for more information, you can contact the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee or Carly Ream.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's it, right?
Okay, next on the agenda is committee vacancies.
So committee vacancies as of May 20th, 2024. The following committees have vacancies, if anyone is interested. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the Conservation Commission, the Commission on Disabilities, the Community Action Program Committee, the Cultural Council, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the Historic District Commission, the Holiday Decorating Committee, the Parade Committee, the Public Records Advisory Committee, the Roberts Field Advisory Committee, and the Recycling Committee. If you are interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an online application available at the town website, or you can contact the town manager's office for more information.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're at the public input part of our meeting. If there's anybody here who would like to address the board about any topic, they can come up to the microphone. Keep in mind that you have 3 minutes to make your presentation. And also, I should note, you noticed that one of our board members is missing, but Pat Mahoney is actually on Zoom. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Paul Ragazio, resident of 6 Technology Drive. I'm a town meeting rep from Precinct 2. I'm here to discuss the Parker School feasibility study, not specifically the project itself, but basically the funding of it. Being a retired corporate finance manager and a CPA, that's my area of expertise. The $64, I do support the project, and I believe that the lower grades are increasing based on the birth rate of the last 4 or 5 years, so that there is a need for bigger elementary schools, so I'm in support of that. But the question is, how do we fund it? There's 3 ways that we can fund basically the $900,000 cost that the town is going to have to pay. One way is to borrow the money over the next 5 to 10 years, and obviously that will cost additional interest. Do we include it in the cost of the current tax levy? And thirdly, do we use it, do we avail ourselves of available funds that the town has? And talking to town officials, namely John Souza, and on the select board, that I believe that the town is looking towards a surplus for the coming year. So my thought is that I think we want to, use the option for using the surplus fund to fund this $900,000. We're looking forward to probably a $100 or $200 million project for a new school 4 or 5 years down the road. There's no basis of trying to expand that cost by extending the funding for this project into the 4 or 5 years, the 4 or 5 years. So again, I strongly recommend that we fund this project out of the surplus cash that I believe is expected for the coming year. And again, hopefully the board will agree with that, and appreciate any comments you have.
Okay, thank you.
No comments.
No, we don't start a debate or a conversation.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to address the board? Is there anyone on Zoom? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're to licenses. We have a one-day alcohol beverage license for the American Legion. Is anybody here from the Legion? Of course.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Vigent, Commander of the American Legion, Post 313.
Good evening, Board. Phil Hamilton, Senior Commander.
Good evening, Board. Al Riccio, General Manager, American Legion, Post 313.
Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit about the application you're presenting this evening?
Just our annual block party, hosted behind our building on Willis Drive. Same program as usual, movable blockades on each end, live band with the tables set up on each side of the road.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the one-day all-alcoholic beverages license for the American Legion at 90 Groton Road as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Since we do have one member that is remote, we are required to do a roll call vote, so I'll ask for the roll call. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm aye, that's 5-0. So you're all set.
Thank you very much.
See you then.
See you there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we also have a transfer of a common victular license from New England Pie Company Incorporated, doing business as Domino's Pizza, to St. Mary Pie Company, doing business as Domino's Pizza for 118 Chelmsford Street. And we have somebody here to talk about that.
Good evening. I'm just the brother of the previous owner. I was a supervisor, and now I'm taking over. I'm looking to expand the business by providing school lunch to the area, and hopefully looking for more work opportunities to the current generation of the people around. That's about it. Looking for more business opportunity.
But you're not going to change anything as far as the inside of the building or
No,
hours or
no,
anything else?
No, or everything is already set up, and in the application, all the hours are specifically the same. Building is the same.
Are you George,
Yes, George McKell. I am the brother of the owner.
of the current owner?
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed they had both had the same last name. Anybody else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll take a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of the common victular license from New England Pie Company, Inc., DBA Domino's Pizza, to St. Mary Pie Company, Inc., DBA Domino's Pizza at 118 Chelmsford Street, Unit 1, as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So I'll do a roll call again. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erin?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. Okay. You're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have reports and presentations, and first up is Mike Raisbeck to talk about the Coolest Farm Task Force recommendations.
Why, thank you. Mike Raisbeck, I'm chair of the Coolest Farm Task Force. I'll start out with the good news, and the good news is Coolest Farm is open after 4 months. We started work in the beginning of January, and honest to God, it's open to the public. A minor miracle, if you ask me, for which there are lots of kudos to go around, and I'm going to indulge myself and spread a few kudos. First of all, to the committee, Jim Dowd, Phil Stanway, Mike Chelzinski, Sue Obendorf, John Ray, and John Swenson made up the Coolest Farm Task Force. And additional kudos go to the Chelmsford DPW. They did an incredible amount of work up there, straightening out the parking area, leveling things, getting rid of some of the pretty serious safety issues that we had up there with, walls that you could fall off the top of, and, old farm equipment you could get stuck in, and lots of other nasty stuff. They took care of all of that. And also the Coolest Task Force Work Party, headed by Phil Stanway, who have actually got a set of trails up and running and open. So you can go up there and you can enjoy it, and I hope that you do. Coolest is about, I think, 41 and a half acres, something like that. The big chunk's 21 acres. That's where most of the big and interesting stuff goes. We looked at a number of possible uses for it. We took proposals from the public, and we also had some ideas of our own. And I'll go quickly down that list. On some of the other, there are actually three parcels to this land, depending on how you count it, 3 contiguous parcels. The other 2 are either wetland or agriculture land. They've already been put to agricultural uses to the extent that they can be. Some of the proposals that we had were a wildflower pollinator preserve, pickleball courts, pasture lands, tillable agricultural land on 2 chunks, a wildlife rescue facility, and some commercial outdoor plant storage. We've made recommendations in the report, and you can see the details there. But in particular, the agricultural uses, the native plant meadow got our thumbs up, and the wildlife rescue facility, although that's going to be a fairly complex piece of work to develop. So our recommendations is it's a good idea, but a lot more work's going to have to be done there before something acceptable can be put in place. The pickleball court, turns out there are other places around town that are already flat, so that may be more appropriate as well. We kind of had to choose between the wildlife facility and the outdoor, plant area, commercial, that which, by the way, is a legitimate agricultural activity. However, they both needed to use the same piece of land. There wasn't any way to accommodate both, and we decided that we preferred the wildlife facility. So there you have it. There are a few other things that we considered. Community garden space, we've recommended that something be left in reserve for that would only need about 1 acre. And if the need develops and the muscle can be found to actually prepare it, because preparing a community garden is not a simple process. I've done it myself. But we should reserve some space for that should it happen. There's a possibility of a nice sledding hill over there. It actually could be on top of the same piece, or very close to the same piece as a native plant garden. I mean, they're completely compatible. You could sled on it in the winter. And there's a very nice event area there. If you've been over, take a look at the big meadow. It's got a nice little rise. You can almost see where people could, 100 people could sit there and watch even a theatrical presentation. Personally, I'd like to see them do Midsummer Night's Dream up there. But there are lots and lots of good possibilities. So there you have it. What remains to be done is finalization of land management agreements, associated state filings, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Paul knows all about that. He was at every single one of our meetings. And the Coolest Task Force Work Party, which is not the same as the team that made the recommendations, but very closely associated, they will continue to work on the infrastructure over there. With the report, there's also an addendum that shows just a long list of things that can be done or are in process to that space. There are some maps. The one map in particular shows you the 21-acre parcel and shows some of the proposed activities. The rest of it is just agriculture. And with that, questions?
Yeah, as you note, I mean, there is still a lot of work to be done before we can make any decisions on how to move forward, so.
Absolutely.
I hope you didn't come here expecting a.
Oh, absolutely not. No, our job is to make recommendations.
Right.
And that's all that we're doing. I think at this point we'll go into hibernation, but you can pull us out of hibernation anytime you need if you want more, more work to be done on Coolest Farm.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you. I think you guys did a tremendous amount of work and working with the DPW on the safety of the land and getting a few trails open. With the Conservation Commission taking responsibility for this land now, I think that it makes sense that these recommendations go to them to work the details and the feasibility under the conservation restriction and all that same process that you alluded to that has to happen.
Well,
In terms of the task force work party, when we voted to approve the town manager establishing this task force in November, the letter that we voted on was to come up with ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the
Right.
only scope in that letter. And so you've overachieved and gone well beyond that. My point, though, is that I believe, I feel very strongly that additional work being done on the land, you said the task workforce party is going to keep going, but I don't feel that should happen independent of the Conservation Commission.
Absolutely
And I think
not.
that should actually be guided through the Conservation Commission as the authority on the land right now.
You're absolutely correct. In fact, there's a member of the Concom on our task force.
I understand that, but we're also
will be taking the,
we're also receiving kind of emails counter to that, and I just want to say publicly that I feel that this all needs to go funnel through the commission now with the support of Paul and his staff.
I think you're right.
And I think you guys have done what you were supposed to do and have done a tremendous job at it. I know it wasn't easy at times. So thank you again.
Well, my pleasure. My pleasure. We had a good time.
I'd like to thank everybody that was involved in the work. It seems the same people do most of the work and that type of work when a project like that comes up. So kudos to all of you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else?
Paul, were you going to say something?
No, I just would just remind the board and the community of where it goes from here, and Mike referred to it. And this is very similar to what happened on Warren Pole. When the town acquired the Warren Pole land under the same language and provisions at town meeting, we have formed an advisory group. The advisory group made its report to the select board. What has to happen now, and it's going to take a little while, and we've talked about this at the task force meeting, is we have to go out and submit a preservation restriction to the state. But in order to do that, we need to do a baseline survey and draft the restriction, get the third party who will hold the restriction, and that's going to take some time. It'll probably take over a year. And Virginia, what you're getting is, while that process is still unfolding, in fact, with Warren Pohl, the commission manages the property, and the activities go through the commission, much like what's happened at Warren Pohl, where that's open and is, so I think what Mike was describing is the workforce is stepping forward to basically to work, to provide that ongoing maintenance while that's going through the commission, while it's going to go on.
And I think that's fine,
And
as
that's
long
fine.
as it's coordinated.
And that's how we're going to do it. And what we're doing is we're working with, trying to get the same principles, because, for example, I think you'll see the chair of the commission here probably within the next meeting or two with the final document to submit to the state for Warren Pohl. Same thing will happen for this. And then once that's submitted and accepted by the state and executed, then the process that Mike also described about doing the lease agreements and everything unfolds. So it's going to take a while. But again, I just want to thank everybody for their efforts. I think it far exceeded what anybody envisioned. And then also, as Mike noted along the way, because we are losing seasons and so forth, we did the license agreements, as we had discussed at this table a couple meetings ago, to allow the agricultural activities on the two smaller parcels to take place this growing season, and most likely next growing season. And then hopefully it all comes together in the months, and several months, and probably maybe a year or two ahead. So again, it's so great.
The renewal of those licenses, although it's like under your
It's gonna go through the
authority to do
commission.
that, but you would coordinate that with the commission
Yes.
as well?
Yep, exactly. Basically, that's how that process will take place. I've met with David Kuntz, who's the conservation agent, and I've also met with Carl Bischoff, who's the chair of the commission. They're aware of that. And again, we're trying to work some efficiencies. For example, we want to put a sign out there, the permanent sign in the language that's required under the Community Preservation Act. And so we're trying to do those efforts. But the biggest challenge, and you're seeing this everywhere, is getting people to do the work. And we saw that with the wetlands flag.
Yeah.
We had our wetlands flag, but we still haven't had them mapped yet, because trying to get that resource. So again, tremendous success. I think the message that Mike delivered is the land's open to the public. And then we're going to do the behind-the-scenes work. And again, everything that's done in terms of that restriction, everything else will come back before the select board, as we have with Warren Pohl and the other properties, for approval. And then ultimately, it gets wrapped up.
And if the public wants to go walk on the trails, is it obvious when they approach, like where to park and where to go?
Yeah.
They're working on signage.
Yeah, in
And they
fact-
should stay on the trails?
Yes, at least until we get the last little bits. There may still be a little bit of barbed wire off in a corner somewhere. They're doing the best they can, but
Yeah.
we'll find the stuff and clean it up.
Okay.
Wonderful. Hey, go over there and enjoy it. It's a beautiful piece of land.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is Chief Spence with the Traffic Safety Committee report.
Good evening. Pleasure to be before all of you tonight. Just a couple quick updates. As you know, the traffic safety meeting meets monthly, the third Monday of every month. We just met today. We communicate via email on a regular basis. One thing that was brought to our attention was a sign on Lynn Ave as a truck exclusion. We ended up removing the sign, and the reason why we did that, there was no record of it ever being improved. Therefore, it was unenforceable by the police department. Now, as far as having a truck exclusion on Lynn Ave, how we could justify that is if we have an alternative route. And what I'm going to show tonight is there really is not a viable alternative route. Now, if there was an alternative route, we would have to conduct an engineering study to show that 5 to 8% of the vehicles going down Lynn Ave were heavy commercial vehicles, which we do not believe the case is, but we really don't have to do that because we do not have a viable route. The other thing would be if the condition of the pavement on Lynn Ave, which I don't believe that is really an issue. I believe it's at a 74. That the trucks would have to be excluded if the condition of the pavement. Now, if we look we looked extensively at the alternative route, which would be Main Street at Groton Road. And when we did certain simulations, and I had the DPW, thank you to Christine and Tony, they did simulations of all different heavy vehicles that may take that turn. And as you'll see, the first one is the box truck and dump truck simulation. And when you look at it, the truck goes over the yellow lines and also the fog lines. A triaxle truck would also have further overlaps. As everybody knows, that intersection is pretty much a hairpin turn. We also did a fire truck simulation, and there was significant overlaps over the double yellow line and the fog lines when you maneuver through that intersection. Now, when you look at that simulation for the fire truck, if we can just go back to that for 1 second, the front of the fire truck actually goes over the lawn that's there. That's how far it would go over. Now, the tractor-trailer simulation, based on the current intersection, significantly overlaps the double yellow lines, the fog lines, and also the tractor-trailers would go through the parking lot that is currently there, causing more issues. So in summary, the exclusion sign, the truck exclusion sign, was removed because it was not enforceable, because it was never approved that we could find in any sort of records by any board, which would make it enforceable for us. Based on the simulations, that's not a viable alternative route. And also, if you look at the simulations, it doesn't take into any account driver error. If a driver misjudges something, it's even worse than this is a perfect turn, pretty much, that these simulations. And also, we do not believe that 5 to 8% of the traffic is heavy truck traffic on Lynn Ave. So that's pretty much where we stand as far as the Lynn Ave explanation. So I'm here to take any questions you may have.
When you do have truck exclusions, are emergency vehicles excluded from the exclusion?
Normally, no.
Really?
Normally, I think usually a fire truck, if it's an emergency, they have to get there. Normally, we try to abide by any of the signage, especially do not enter signs, because you're at a risk for an accident. But I would think a truck exclusion, if it's an emergency and that's the only way that they can get there, I would say, I think that was more of a simulation itself, right, as far as the size of what that vehicle is.
And within how many miles does the alternate route have to exist? Was it within a mile or two, or I don't remember.
It has to be I think the big thing is the viable alternative route.
Well, I
like
know,
as
but
far
you
as,
picked the closest alternative route.
because you
so
could say it could be anywhere. I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
I think there's a distance limitation.
Yeah, there's some distance limitation.
We
in
looked at this
state.
before when we were thinking about sending other trucks to Drum Hill, right?
Yeah, we ran into that also on Golden Cove.
we did go out and look at Lynn Ave today. I went earlier, and DPW director went tonight, just to see, if there's any other issues that we could, look at, line of sight issues. We might be cutting back some vegetation on Lynn Ave, or asking the residents to cut back some.
Could you look at one other thing?
Yep.
At the corner of Lynn and Main, where one of the signs was taken down, the pole is still there, the green metal thing that the sign was on. Is it possible to remove that?
Yes. We can.
So I know that I guess it wouldn't totally fix the issue, because you still might have some turning, but if it were made one way, would that help, especially, at least in that one way?
If Lynn Ave was made one way?
Correct.
I don't believe it would. If you look at the simulations, I think we're still going to have issues, because both directions had issues in the slides, as far as how, and that's without driver error whatsoever. And everybody knows how busy Groton Road is.
Right.
You put driver error in there, I think we have a significant safety issue if we allowed that.
Okay.
And the traffic committee is going to look at the other safety issues that were brought up by one of the residents to see if there's anything that can
Yes.
be done to mitigate those.
So that was one of the things that was brought up by somebody that runs down that road. I believe that's the email you're referring to. That was the vegetation, as far as the trucks didn't want the trucks, but also some overgrown line of sight issues,
Okay.
which that's what we looked at today to address.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have a question. So it says you don't believe that heavy commercial vehicles are at least 5 to 8% of the overall volume of traffic, right? Which is necessary.
Yes.
But there's been a truck exclusion sign up there for how long? How long has the sign been up there?
Years.
Years.
So,
As far-
so if there's a truck exclusion sign, I mean, they're not turning
Yeah.
down there. But I drive in that area of town pretty regularly, and I will tell you that Google Maps does direct you down Lynn Ave. So if you have trucks operating up there and they're looking at a mapping app in their phone, it is going to direct them down Lynn Ave.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would guess that you might not see 5 to 8% now, but you might see a lot more than that
Yeah.
going forward. If that truck exclusion sign isn't there anymore, then, that's going to be.
Well, I think the one thing that we did look
Right.
at, and we actually discussed during one of the committee meetings, was as far as the need for somebody with, as far as utilizing Lynn Ave, not a lot of commercial trucks they're normally going to get off at whatever exit they need to get off at. They're not really, if they're going into Westford, they're not really going to take Main Street unless
They do.
unless they have to go that way.
They can't take a-
Chief, the issue we have now is that they do come down to the Triangle Variety and they go down Main Street to get into
Yeah.
Westford. And then the ones that are coming out of Swain Road also sometimes go down Main Street to get into Westford to that highway interchange.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Aaron makes a good point, though, that maybe it would be appropriate to, like, go monitor it in the future when the signs are down after some period of time to see if more trucks are going on that route.
Yeah.
Because
And we can
currently,
do that. That's easy
Their
enough.
mapping app
Yeah.
will tell them to take that right, but there's a truck exclusion sign, so they're going down to the corner and going,
And then
they're
taking the
going
turn.
the other way. But if there is no truck exclusion sign, they're going to start turning down that road, and I think
Yeah.
you're going to see, because Google sends you right down.
I mean, we
the
can-
alley.
we can look at that.
The reason they are taking Main Street is because of the permitting exclusions that Westford put in place that sends everybody to Chelmsford and not down Route 40 in Westford.
Yes, yeah.
So one of their workarounds is to go down Main Street if they want to get back into Westford.
Yeah. I mean, we can look at the changes as far as maybe wait a month,
Yeah.
another month when the sign's gone, or
I think
towards
you're-
the,
I
probably
think you're
towards the
gonna
end of
hear
the
about
summer,
it.
when things are really
You might hear about
picking
it
up.
from the people on Lynn Ave, to be honest, because I think you're going to see
Yeah.
a bump up there. Not gonna lie.
Any other questions on that?
I would think that Lynn Avenue would be much safer. I don't know why. I mean, that, especially with the tractor trailers and whatever. But I guess, I don't like to put the heat on people on Lynn Avenue, but when you take those big tractor trailers and they gotta go all the way around, have there been many accidents up there at all? At the Triangle store? Like,
No, I mean, we've had accidents in the past because it's a pretty high traffic area.
it is.
And now we're basically having all that traffic down there. It is kind of a different intersection, definitely.
It's tough.
I mean,
It's a tough-
and they're
it's a-
kind of offset. It's not like a four-way intersection. They're offset in the
Then
different
do you
areas.
see any issues with tractor trailers going down Lynn Ave along with residential cars? I mean, with personal vehicles, is that
I have
taking
not.
those corners? I mean, Lynn Ave isn't a big street, it's
Yeah.
small.
Yeah, I have not seen any issues with it. Now, obviously, I think if you live in a small street, you're not going to want larger trucks going down it. But I just don't think we have a viable option right now. That turn is going to create an issue. It's basically a hairpin turn that we're forcing all the trucks to go down. So,
But you don't think that Lynn Ave is going to be an issue with trucks turning down there and private vehicles pulling out at the same time?
well, I
Both
think,
like kind
I
of
think
issue to
that,
me,
I
actually,
think
or
the.
Like that on any street.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you turn there too, you
Because
have,
it's
you
small.
have to slow down to go down onto Lynn Ave when you're taking that turn in. And I don't think we have a lot of tractor trailers per se, maybe more box trucks,
Yeah. Just
UPS,
less.
things along those lines, so.
Well, if we need some other traffic calming or whatever measures, then we can look at those, right? If it does get to be excessive.
Yes.
If the truck traffic gets to be excessive there.
Yeah. And we'll put the speed board out there again. It's really not a speed issue. It's just not.
Yeah, it's such a short road. I mean, you can't get much speed.
Yeah.
Especially in a truck, maybe in a car, but in a
Right.
truck, it's just not.
Yeah, yeah, the speed is probably less of an issue than the turn, I'd imagine, either way, yeah.
All right.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so Subway Ave, there was a request to lower the speed limit to 15 miles per hour on Subway Ave. And the request basically came about because one of the homeowners had seen a 15 mile per hour sign on another street. It was not a legal sign. So that's how everything started. Now, if everybody knows Subway Ave has Subway Ave and Subway Ave extension that connects to it. Now, the request to go to 15 miles per hour, I strongly do not believe that it is feasible for what it is. We do have a 25 mile per hour warning sign on each side when people come in, and it seems to be working. If you look, speed is really not an issue. The latest traffic study that we did in April shows an average speed of 24.2 miles per hour northbound and 21.1 miles per hour southbound. And we also don't have a large history of accidents on that street. And that's one of the things we look at when we're looking at stop signs, because the other request was a three-way stop on the two subway sides in Subway Ave. So it will be a three-way stop. I don't recommend that. We just do not have the accidents there to justify that. There is just not a lot of traffic coming out of Subway Ave, and we don't use stop signs merely to slow people down. That's not the purpose of a stop sign. Purpose of stop sign is to basically have people stop. And I think that may be more problematic by putting stop signs there. Now you have people stopping, other people, it just creates more of an issue.
Don't they use that as a cut-through in the morning sometimes?
They do. There is a high traffic volume there because you do have the intersection, Stedman at Dalton. So it's a higher traffic volume. But you also, Sylvan has a high traffic volume also. A lot of those streets there, unfortunately, it's just human nature. People are looking, but we just do not have the speed issue, and we don't have the speed issue on Sylvan either. We did a traffic study on there, I believe it was a year ago, and it was a little bit higher than Subway, but it wasn't over 30 miles per hour. So
What's the speed limit now, 30?
it is currently 30.
30, yeah.
We do utilize those yellow 25 mile per hour signs. We do not enforce those as speed limit signs, though. They're just warnings, recommendations. Those we utilized years ago. We don't utilize them as much now, but we figure something like that, we leave them there. And it does appear to be helping because they are going under the average speed is well under. So.
At one time, they were going to have between say 6:30 in the morning and 8:30, they were going to, only local traffic only on those streets.
Yeah.
Because everybody was leaving Dalton, Stedman Street, taking a left, and then they get back out onto 110 and then go back this way.
I remember that. I remember when there was a push for that.
I don't know what happened to that. But.
Yeah. I think the issue with those, it goes to everybody, because we can't determine. Somebody takes that right, if it says no right turn or between whatever hours, and we stop the person. It applies to everybody, including residents. So I think that creates more of an issue too. And I think it would be very difficult to do that. That's a great point, George.
Well, it's just for the locals. I mean, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah, but how do you, you can't really,
Because remember one time we had a big meeting on the Western School and everything, everybody showed up and they were all upset about it. And
Yeah.
just a point, I'm sure the traffic isn't any less now than it used to be. If not, it must be more, I don't know.
Yeah.
we put
Whatever.
those no left turns on Golden Cove. Remember coming this way along all those side streets, but it doesn't say except for local, everybody has to go around,
Yeah.
so.
So. All right. Any
So,
other-
so I have a couple things, if everybody's done with the Subway Avenue questions. You might remember a few years ago when we had our listening session up at the Senior Center for Traffic. It was before your time as chief, but there was a resident there who had asked that we look at Hazen Road to be one-way Do you know where Hazen Road is?
Yes, yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yes.
At the time, we were just getting ready to start the project at Concord Road and Boston Road. So it was suggested that evaluation wait until after that construction was done because there were detours that were going all through that neighborhood. So I wonder if you could take a look at that again, at Hazen Road, one way, I don't know which way. This was a resident who lives there. He actually abuts both Concord Road and Hazen Road, and Hazen Road is a narrow street, and just asked if that could be considered. And kind of in that same area, along those same lines, we're talking about stop signs. When you have a stop sign, don't you usually have the stop line, the white line on the street? Is that required?
Not really for enforcement, is that?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So for enforcement, the stop sign is really what's used, the stop sign. The stop line is good to put when you have a new sign, but we don't go around town refreshing all the stop lines. I think the requirement is really the sign, and the line is really not as enforceable as the sign itself.
Okay, because it seems, just driving around today, I've noticed it seems there is a line almost at every stop sign, but the side of Hazen Road that comes out to Concord Road, there's kind of a funny intersection there. Arthur Avenue comes out in Hazen Road and then Concord Road, and there's no stop lines anywhere. There's stop signs, but it's kind of, sometimes it can be confusing as to who's supposed to stop and who has the right of way to go.
We can look into that. I know also when you have like new stop signs, the word stop is looked at. That's something we do not do. That would only be for, but we can look at the stop sign. My understanding is the stop sign itself is the enforceable.
Okay, yeah, it seems to be more noticeable, I guess, if you have the line also. I've noticed that, but that's all. Okay, that's all I had. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about this evening on traffic safety?
Anything? Good?
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much for having me.
Okay. It's Christine, you could have, well, actually not. Sorry. During public input, you could.
They don't know they can leave.
Okay. For the events that you announced in the morning.
For the events?
Yes, those events that you announced.
Uh-huh.
How can I participate in that, to supply some food or?
You could, there's usually contact information
Yes,
on.
how can I get the contact sample?
It's on the flyers. So if you go to the agendas,
The agendas?
the agenda center, go to the agenda for the meeting, and you can get all the flyers, and each flyer has contact information.
And where do I get that?
On the town website. Town.
Go to the home page, and there's a button to say Agenda Center, and then you look for the Select Board agenda.
All right.
If you have any problems, when you come by for your license, they'll help you in the office.
Yeah.
There you go.
The Board of Health also hosts a lot of them. They might just
Yeah.
be a great place to start.
There's
Just
also
contact-
news flashes on the home page.
Just need to grow some businesses.
There you go. And you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
No, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night. Take care.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good evening, Christine Clancy, DPW Director. Just want to provide the monthly ARPA update. So before you tonight, we do have the spreadsheet that we do update monthly. We have a total of $10.6 million in ARPA funds that are just shy of $10.6 million. To date, we have allocated 60 projects to the ARPA funds. Of the $10.6 million, $9.8 million has been allocated. We do track monthly the percent of the projects procured and spent. So to date, we have procured 91% of all the appropriated funds, and 68% of those procured funds have been invoiced and spent to try to track progress of those projects. There is a remaining balance of just about $740,000 that has been unallocated. So that's something that we, in terms of a timeline, we have until this December to allocate, but we still have that balance. And so this December for allocation, and just as a reminder, we have 2 years to actually complete the projects. But I have the spreadsheet before you. This is the same spreadsheet updated monthly. The blue projects are projects that are complete, procured, and completed. The green procured, but we're still in progress. Yellow is partially procured. And then we have projects on here that are listed in red. That is where we still are in the middle of procuring. I guess to give a couple of highlights, not to go over all the projects, we did do a number of projects where the drainage projects, we did complete the procurement of that since the last month's update. So that would be numbers 52, 54, 55. Number 53 is, number 51, the stream cleaning, that will be procured. We'll be opening that bid next week. And then we also have the recently approved projects that we are working on procurement, so we should hopefully have updates on those in the next month or so. We also still have the, I call them the TAB projects, the testing and balancing projects, going back to numbers 14 and 17 through 20. We just haven't prioritized that because we have some other projects that are more time sensitive, but we do know that this is on our list, so we do have plans to procure it this spring, potentially, I guess, into the summer. Are there any questions, project specific, on the ARPA update?
I just have a question about like the timing of allocating the rest of the funding. So we said that we wanted to wait for some of the yellow and reds to clear to know kind of where we stand. So are we talking maybe later this summer or early fall that we would take a comprehensive look at the options for the rest of the funding?
Yes, that's my understanding.
I know we did some piecemeal that were more urgent, but I would prefer, like, for the remaining allocation, if we can, to just know the whole picture.
I think we'll have a really good understanding by mid to late summer.
Okay.
Especially, and like there's a lot of these, and also some of these projects is where they are progress-wise. Some of still like the RTU replacement work, a lot of that is going to happen this summer. So I think you'll start to see a lot of these projects not only be procured but also completed. So I think this summer is later this summer is a good time frame.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or? All right. So if there's no questions on that, I'll move on to I have a brief presentation on the FY25 sewer rate update. First slide, thank you. So this slide was presented to the select board and at town meeting. This was the FY25 operations budget that was approved for the sewer division. The sewer division is an enterprise account, so that is funded, really a self-funded division. Same with our stormwater. So what that means is the billings that we generate, the revenue that we generate, that goes into that particular division, the sewer division. So what we do annually is we do look at the sewer rates to see if we have to make any adjustments. Since I've been here now 2 years, I've been annually looking at sewer to see if it's an adjustment, and then we also look at annually at stormwater. So we've been making some adjustments for stormwater in the beginning of the calendar year, being in January. And then sewer, being July. So looking at this year's FY25 budget, we do have a anticipated 8.76 increase, and we had presented this at town meeting. We had various reasons. There was some adjustments in the we had, in terms of the personnel services, we had some changes there, but actually was projecting lower than in previous years. Really, the main reason for the increases were we had an increase in the lower user fee with our increased capacity or increased usage that triggers a higher bill. Also, with the Lowell having a consent order for their upgrades, we have seen our bill is increasing. Essentially, for every gallon that we send to Lowell, there's an increase. And looking in the future, that likely is just going to increase. So we did project an additional $200,000 in next year's fee. Also, grinder pump maintenance has increased, and also we have the debt service for the Kensington pump station and the flush truck. So that all kind of rolls up to a 8.76% increase estimated.
So you think, we think that in Lowell addressing their DEP orders, they're flowing that cost down?
Yes, they've told us they are. That's in the contract, so they are pushing those costs down. I mean, they're seeing rate increases. I think generally a lot of people are, but those costs are coming to us. So just as I guess just last year, it went up about 10%. Their fee to us.
Yeah, they've told us to expect double-digit increases in the upcoming years. And the reason is our sewer flow goes from our town line through the Lowell sewer line. So as they're replacing those lines, that portion of that cost gets attributed to the adjoining communities that flow through those lines. Also, they are doing some upgrades at the plant as well.
Yes.
Improvements at the plant. And therefore, basically the answer is we should expect a double-digit increase for the next several years for our flow charges.
So for the FY24 sewer rate, I provided this presentation just about the same time last year. We switched from a standard rate for residential, for commercial, industrial. We used to have 3 rates. We switched over to a tiered rate structure. This is similar to other communities, also similar to our Chelmsford water districts. So really it promotes water conservation. We still have broken down by residential, commercial, industrial. Every 6 months per the 1,000 gallons, if you use more water, you do pay more per the 1,000 gallons. So we use this to establish our fees last year, and these were just shown. This just shows the minimum residential 6-month bill and the average in the average residential and commercial bill based on that tiered rate structure. And if I remember, last year the increase was about depending on what tier you fell into, but for residential it was average about just over 8% increase. And so I will, in the next slide, get into the tiered rates proposal. But our revenue is variable. It's based on the flow, so we can't anticipate what the flows are going to be next year, and it's based off of water readings. So if irrigation's includes irrigation in the water readings. So that is a variable that is somewhat unpredictable. So when we do establish these rates, we base it off of look at the data we have, but we also and we track it throughout the year. Also, we have our neighboring community, Tingsboro. Their flows come through us, so we do, just like I guess Lowell bills us, we bill Tingsboro. So if their flows change, then their fee to us changes as well. So when we looked at this tiered rate structure, how would we want to increase those rates? I had to take various factors into effect. It's not as easy as doing a calculation to say, okay, what was last year's flow and what's the rate, and let's just increase it by a certain percentage. It all depends on what the rate flows are and what the flows are for those the categories I just presented. So there's a few things that we took into consideration. Right now, under our FY24 sewer billings, we're falling just a little bit below target. We're at 94%, so close. But that is partially because we've had a lot of rain. When you have a lot of rain, even though our sewer flows are increasing to Lowell, people use less irrigation. And so when people use less irrigation, actually our billings are a little lower. So like the year we had the drought, not complete drought, but our billings were actually up. So it's almost like an inverse effect depending on the rain in terms of our billings. Also, we looked at the budget increase that I just showed you. So with this 8.7% budget increase, that includes the increase anticipated with the Lowell treatment plant. And then we also looked at the Tingsboro flow. So since last year, Tingsboro's flows are up 22%. And without there being a change, I estimate those will continue in some capacity. So that does involve more fees, I guess, so that we take that into consideration when we're establishing the rates. So when we look at all that, we're estimating about a 4% increase, which is, given where rate inflation is, that's I think pretty minor compared to where we are in the current environment. So here is a chart that we put together effective this July 1st, and I just wanted to show what the minimum residential, commercial, industrial rates are. So from last year, the minimum rates go from 45 to 47, and all the way down the industrial is from 65 to 68. We also have well waters, so that flat fee went from 155 to 162. That's the minimum. The average residential annual sewer bill that last year was estimated at $433, so it will go up $17 to $450, and the average commercial annual sewer bill goes up $88 from $2,188 to $2,276. These will be effective July 1st, and we will monitor it. Like I said, each month we look at the flows, we look at our billings, and we just track to see what percent complete, just in case there was any change that needed to be made. I don't know if there's any questions.
It seems that the flat fee for the people who have their own well water seems kind of low compared to what the average residential is. I mean, is there some justification for that, or?
So we did look at that last year, and that was something that we looked at, and I think their usage is generally lower than the average, because I guess they typically don't have as irrigation. So we actually looked at their usage. Also, we looked at some of their usage. Some of these well waters, the usage is lower. Sure. But I guess it's something that I do want to monitor for this year, just to see if we want to make an adjustment for next year.
Okay, we don't have many in that category, though, do we?
175, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think it'd be that many. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have questions?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is the Select Board policy for the outdoor alcohol beverage service areas. Is Christina available, Paul, to talk about this?
No, I don't
Oh.
believe she's, I know she's running the Zoom, but I don't believe she's on. But she believes that what you put in here was pretty much what the board had agreed to the last,
Yeah, I mean, as Christina and I looked at the policies and the regulations, it made more sense to put what you see here under the licensing rules we have for serving alcohol. And looking at the policy, there didn't really seem to be anything that specifically needed to be added or changed, because it refers, to these regulations, which need to be, they're enforced by the, whoever the approval process is. Is that the police or Board of Health or whoever goes out and does the inspections?
Yeah, the building commissioner goes out, as well as the Board of Health and police all go over separately. Yeah.
Okay.
Pat, you lost me. Looking at what, it didn't seem that didn't need to change?
We didn't need anything in our actual policies. This is from our rules
Oh,
and
okay,
regulations.
thank you.
That's all, yeah. So, yeah, we did add section 3.04 here, which, basically explains that we need to get the detailed information about where they're going to put their tables and chairs, and make sure that and also references the ABCC guidance, which lists about the requirement that you have to be able to see from inside what's going on out in that area that you have outside, and make sure you have people to cover that area, and they are required to bring the request to this board for our approval before it goes into effect. We just don't require a public hearing, and it does not have to go to the ABCC. So I think that pretty much covers it. And have we had any requests yet?
No, not yet.
So I don't even think we need a vote on this, do we? Because those...
You should adopt the policy.
Yeah.
You should adopt the policy.
Okay, but this isn't a policy, this isn't our rules and
I mean, you should
regulations.
adopt the rule.
Okay.
Yeah, adopt
All
the
right.
rules. I
Okay.
mean, because what the
Agree with
state
that.
said with the new law was that
That's right.
it's subject to the local
Yeah,
approved regulation.
yep, so I guess we do need a motion to approve this new rule.
Not a policy.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the new draft liquor license regulation regarding expansion of outdoor table service as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. That was it. Okay, thank you. All right, so next up is a discussion of topics for our next meeting when our legislative delegation will be here.
Yeah, and at this point, Senator Barrett has confirmed his attendance. Representative Elliott has confirmed his attendance. Representative Cataldo has a conflict, but he's going to send an aide, and we're still awaiting word from Representative Arciero's office.
Okay.
I kind of, when I actually spoke to Representative Cataldo this afternoon on a different matter, but told him that I expect the issue of accessory dwelling units will likely come up in terms of the housing bond bill, and I'm sure will make the select board's list in terms of discussion items that's before the legislature currently.
I had on my list the housing bond bill status, like the whole thing, and I know the ADUs is part of that we.
And I don't.
My understanding is that it's still in Ways and Means.
Yeah, but it's expected to be acted by the House within the next couple of weeks, but most likely after they meet with you in 2 weeks, but probably not that much further out. Because they're nearing the end of their session. They have 2 months left.
Do you have any others, Virginia?
I do.
Oh, okay, go ahead. See if you cover some of them.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
I was wondering if it would be appropriate to get a status on the Middlesex North Road Vinyl Square intersection, where we need state support for that, right? I don't know if we know what the current status is, but
yeah,
it seemed to be.
Yes, it comes up almost every meeting at the vinyl.
Right, but
Vinyl
they're the
Square
ones
strategic.
that suggested.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I also had the Middlesex Williamsburg sidewalk status, but then I saw today that it looks like the construction has started.
Yes.
So that's good. And then with respect to Ledge Road, we had House Bill 3876, which was specific to Chelmsford, and then the status of House Bill 3706, which was the larger truck bill from a couple of years ago. And I did look up the status of both of those today. The 3876, which is the one specific to Chelmsford, says that on March 28th, the Senate concurred. That was the last piece of it. And my understanding was that might still be hung up in transportation, and they might refer it to study, but I thought it would be good to get an update on that. And then I don't see any, one of the residents that's tracking 3706 asked me about it, but I don't see anything on the state website past January 3rd, 2023, when it says no further action was taken. So, and then the only other thing that I had, I don't know if this is an appropriate topic. I think we've talked to them before about how do we navigate the underground utilities and the Verizon shortfall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Aaron, you have any?
I had the housing bill in Ledge Road.
Okay.
Those are
George?
mine, so.
Do you have any?
Yeah, well, lights actually at Richardson Road.
Oh, yeah.
And Princeton Street. I mean, I know that sometimes they minor ones, but there seems to be a lot of, we've been looking for that for a long time, so I don't know, is it the DOT that passes us up, or is it that we get?
I don't believe it's on the tip. It's on
I think it's on the UPWP, though.
Yeah, it's on the UPWP.
Which means
exactly.
it's in line to be put on the tip.
Yeah, but we tried that a lot, I mean, we initially,
Yeah.
like 8 or 10 years ago, I mean, because, my concern is all the, the school buses.
Sure.
And all the kids going to 3 schools up that street, you know what I mean? And the line of sight is terrible there, coming out of there, I mean, it's frequently, there's probably a lot of bumps that don't come, they don't get, people just pass their papers and take off, but you see a lot of, little collisions and stuff like that,
Yeah,
They're-
I know there's a couple other projects in that area, like, further up on, like.
Technology Drive, yeah.
Yeah, Technology Drive down to the light there. Maybe they could, I could see if maybe they could combine those, because it makes sense to do that. I mean, you're talking just a couple
Yeah,
hundred feet
and it's
more.
also blind coming over when you're coming from the rotary down,
Mhm.
and you're approaching the Richardson Road area. I mean, when someone's like parked to make a left-hand turn, you're right on top of them before you even see them, because there's a blind spot in there, Just,
Okay.
I mean, we've been talking about it for years, but we
Yeah.
don't seem to get any action on it, so I don't know why. But
Okay.
to me, it's one of the most dangerous areas in the town, and particularly where all the kids, I mean, you get the Harrington and the Parker and
The high school, yeah.
the high school, and then you get all the buses and, so,
Okay,
whatever.
all right. That it?
Yep.
Speaking of tips, is there anything that do we need any further update on the intersection of Princeton and North Road that we put in place for when the UMass West development was happening?
Well, those lights there
They
now.
contributed funds toward the
Right, the fund-
improvement
the
of
funds are
that.
there, right.
Is there anything that we need to coordinate with the state, or that needs to? Is the ball in our court right now, or somebody else's?
Trying to think where-
Christine's shaking her head, yes. The
It's
ball's in
ours.
our, it's in our court right
Yeah.
now? Okay,
We're advancing the 25% design for that.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Pat, do you have anything?
I had ADU and Ledge Road. So,
Okay, all right.
repetitive.
I had a few other, the deputy fire chief
Mhm.
home rule petition.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's passed the House, it's now in the Senate, so.
Okay.
We can, okay, but we
Is
can
that one
ask
more
them.
likely than Ledge Road?
Yes.
Okay. And, maybe some discussion about early voting rules and requirements. I know several months ago, Tricia had other town clerks here and
And the legislators.
and the
yeah.
legislators to talk about all the additional resources that are needed and, time and effort with the new rules that they have. One of my pet peeves about all the early voting, I think it's great that we have the mail option, the mail ballot option, but when you fill out that postcard, you don't have an option to check local elections. If you want local elections, you have to get all. And somebody that maybe isn't going to vote on a primary election, they would just vote local and general election. You can't do that. You have to vote, you have to check all elections. Somebody told me it's because it comes from the Secretary of State's office, and the Secretary of State is not that concerned about local elections, which I hope that's not the case. But anyway, just a couple of things on that. And then, an update on the bottle bill, changes to that. Two parts of it, increasing the deposit to 10 cents and adding it to more bottles that are just typically just thrown away, like water bottles.
Nips.
Nips, that wouldn't be a bad one to talk about, too. I see more and more communities are banning nips, and maybe that should be a statewide initiative. I had on my notes just other environmental initiatives. I mean, there's always plenty of those that they could talk about that don't seem to get very far at the state level, which is unfortunate.
The last time they were here, we talked about Chapter 70, Chapter 90, and also like MBTA and possibly ADU with these unfunded mandates. Is that a recurring theme we want to push back on and just keep it front of mind?
Yeah, I guess it depends, too, how long we want to keep them here.
Well, so I actually mentioned to Paul this week, I was sitting in the ZBA meeting last week, and the ZBA was discussing the ADUs. And I had said to Paul, I said, I feel like the ZBA is kind of talking about it, and I think the planning board is obviously talking about it, and we're talking about it. But I know you had mentioned several weeks ago, maybe we should meet with all of our housing kind of partner boards and committees in town and have a bigger discussion about housing. I still think that that's something that we should probably attempt to do. in some capacity. Maybe it's
Is that,
maybe
is that a separate thing?
well,
or
maybe
is
we
that
should invite them
legislative?
to the legislative meeting. Just maybe they want to hear from our planning board, they want to hear from our ZBA, or maybe we need to rendezvous with our planning board and our ZBA and have some sort of consensus about what we want to say to them regarding that. You know, I don't. I feel like we're kind of having separate conversations about it.
The planning board has already approved a letter that the planning board is sending in regarding ADUs that was very much in concert with ours.
Yeah.
So I think there is alignment there. I don't know what the
Yeah, I think
ZBA
we're
discussion
aligned.
was.
I just don't know how we want to kind of present that to them and in what capacity, you know. I think it's probably kind of the biggest issue that we have for our legislators that's front of mind at the moment, so I don't know if we have like a strategy of how we want to kind of present that to them or just, I mean, we do have the letter, so that's great, but.
Which they've all received.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So they know how we feel.
Yes.
Already, but as far as how we kind of present it to them at that meeting, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts about that. I don't know.
So you think
It's the biggest
perhaps,
thing.
you know, we should have a local meeting with those boards to,
Sometimes I do. I think they have kind of a different view, you know, like the ZBA has, that they're the ones that deal with most of our residential zoning stuff, right? So, and
the
this
ones
is.
that have experience with ADUs, for sure.
Yes, yeah. So they're the ones who have kind of a really specific mindset about this, and probably some input. I don't know, that might be valuable. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to do that kind of before the legislative meeting, or if it's not. I don't know.
Right, and
just a
given,
thought.
Paul, you said that's.
It's our next meeting.
Yeah, it's
No,
too
I mean
soon.
the voting for the
Oh,
housing bond bill.
Soon.
Yeah, it's got to happen within the next 2 months, but I think it's probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is our last kind of opportunity to make
I
any.
don't have,
impact at
I mean,
all.
first of all, let me ask a question. We know where the planning board stands. Where does the ZBA stand?
So I don't really think they, I'm not sure that they have discussed it maybe as much as we have.
I don't.
That's a great question.
I don't-
I'm not
I
really
don't- I don't
sure.
ha- I don't-
So I think that's a discussion we should have with them.
I
you
don't
know.
have an objection inviting a representative from the planning board or the ZBA to our meeting with the legislators, but what I don't want to happen is that we're not prepared as a town and we have people coming in that are just talking about this for the first time.
Yes.
We
yeah.
need to vet all that ahead of time if we think that needs to happen. So I don't know if we can do it for this round or not,
Yeah, it does seem like kind of pushing it.
unless you want to have an extra meeting.
But I mean, they are having discussions about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, you being the liaison, if you have some insights, it would be good to bring those to us too, to see if, and see if they have a sense that they would like to get input from us and have a consolidated, like you said, a consensus from the community.
I mean, the issue on the table is by right versus, local permitting discretion.
Right.
And then the other question in Chelmsford is accessory, I mean, attached or detached, because right now we
And
require attached.
owner-occupied.
And then the third one is owner-occupied.
Yeah.
Right.
I think those are the only three top issues related to ADUs that are out there, and I think.
Size, I think, Paul.
Size, well, the state's saying 900 square feet is their cap under the bond bill, so I don't think
It
anybody's.
started at 750 or
Right,
something.
but I don't think anybody's proposing greater than 900.
Right.
I think so it's 900 or less. I don't think that's the issue of contention. I think it's the question of owner-occupied and attached or detached.
It-
And
Right, and is it also
by right, or is it, or is it by
a
local
a
decision?
relative,
Right.
Some bylaws say it has to be a relative of
And
one
the-
of the
right.
resident of the main.
Right.
Number of occupants, I think, is big too, depending on if they make that rule or not, but if they don't, like I said, you get college kids in there, you might have 4 or 5 kids if you don't cover that problem.
Well, and I think the other point is if they're really, if the people on the Hill who are opposed to it the way it's written are pushing for local control, then that that would satisfy our need too,
Right.
right? Then we can just decide on our own.
Right.
Rather than saying, we want you to write in there that it's owner occupied or attached or detached.
But I mean, the big push, as you saw the article over this weekend, about why the MBTA zoning may not produce the desired results, they reference the ADU, and they keep touting it that this could produce 10,000 units. So that's the push that the state's trying to get at, is housing units.
They just want the data.
They
in
just
other
want
words, for the
units.
data.
And I think, and then from the town's perspective, the boards that set policy are the select board and the planning board. The Board of Appeals is really an adjudicatory board.
Yeah,
You
that's
really
right.
aren't to set policy. So if right now we have the select board's letter and the planning board has a letter, I don't know that the Board of Appeals really
Right,
should
they're
have a
the
letter.
enforcement
Yeah.
board, basically.
Yeah, right, yeah,
of
exactly.
what they have.
Yeah, they're an appeals board.
Yeah.
They're not meant to be a policy board.
Well, that was my next question. Maybe I can liaison with them and ask them
Yeah.
if they want to write a letter, but yeah, that's a good
Their role
point.
isn't to set, that's why
Yeah.
they're not, elected, and that's, they don't set
Right.
policy.
This would essentially be taking that out
Well,
of their hands. so
In the
it's not out
context,
there.
in the context of a policy board, I wouldn't object if we wanted to let the planning board know they were coming, and this is on our list if they want a representative here to speak from the planning board perspective. I think it could help.
Mhm.
It helps give our representatives the ammunition to say this isn't just coming from one place or one resident.
Yes. Or the
It's-
policymaking select board, it's
Yeah.
coming from the committee that is tasked with planning housing, right, for our community. So yeah, I think it's a little bit more.
And that's the feedback I got on our letter, too, is that it was really helpful to have it formalized that the board was taking a position on behalf of the town rather than just dealing with individual emails and
Yeah. But also with the
verbal
backing of the
inputs.
planning board,
Yeah.
which is, I agree. Can we do that? Can we?
Yeah, I can invite the planning board and let them know that that will be discussed.
One member.
Well, yeah, the chair.
Yeah.
Right.
The chair, yeah.
Okay, so we got, can we go back to infrastructure? Did we decide whether we want to
Chapter 70 and
just
90.
mention that theme again?
Yeah, the
Okay.
infrastructure.
Thank you.
I mean, I assume that means sewer,
Roads.
Yeah.
And then the lack of support for that coming from these other housing mandates. Paul, do you have anything in the earmarks or anything that you want to call attention to at this point with them, or do you think
No,
it's
I
just
think,
in
I
the
think
process?
we're well on our way. You probably saw the stories the last couple of weeks about the earmark process, which is a little disappointing as well, but I think, I think the earmark you requested for Senator Barrett is in the list of amendments that will be considered this week by the Senate, so I think we're in good position there, and by the time they get here, the Senate will be completed, and it'll just be a conference committee. So I think we're in good position, given the stabilization of the state's finances.
Do they get involved at all with the, or do they, I know they're aware of it, do they get involved at all with the building efforts, like with Parker?
No.
That's
no.
just with the MSBA?
That's outside their
Right.
domain.
Okay, is that it? That's a lengthy list.
It's shorter than last time, I think.
Is it? Could be. We hope it's getting shorter, right? All right, thank you. Okay, we have a bid award.
Yeah, we're seeking a bid award for the Harrington and Community Education Boiler Project. DPW solicited request for bids. They received 4 responses. The lowest bid and also the lowest qualified bid was for Elanco Services Corporation in the amount of $544,300. And the good thing on this one is you can see, this is actually more of a normal bidding result where the bids are relatively close to each other. And you have 4 bidders, so I think it really gives us confidence that it's a valid and a good price. So again, we'd seek the board's confirmation to award the Harrington and Community Ed Boiler Project to Elanco at $544,300.
Can you remind me what we had allocated for this?
Yeah, let Christine come up since, she's here.
So I don't have the exact dollar figure in front of me, but we had 2 allocations, one for the Harrington and one for the community, community ed for this coming fiscal year. Or actually, community ed was last year, Harrington. So combined, this amount shown is actually, we still have $50,000, about
That's what I thought. It
$50,000
was
left.
like around 600. right?
So if you add, because there's two separate allocations, we decided to move forward, putting them together as one project.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we'll take a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the town manager's bid award for the Harrington School and Community Education Building Boiler Project.
Second.
Do I have to?
Go finish the motion.
Yeah, you can finish it.
To Elanco Service Corp. as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second now. Pat?
Aye.
George? Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. Okay, thank you. And town manager reports.
Okay, as per the board's schedule, tonight is the fiscal year '24 final report on the goals for the current fiscal year. I'll sort of walk through them. Many of them were completed earlier in the year, but just ask me if you want to stop or slow down. But the first one was on ARPA funds, as we know, and heard earlier this evening. The board, the goal was to vote on the allocation of remaining funding. As of this point, as you heard tonight, $740,000 remains to be committed by the end of this calendar year, and I think again in July or August we'll have that request. And in fact, I expect you'll actually get a request at your next meeting on a considerable project that's worthwhile. So again, we're clearly wrapping up the allocation of the funding, and obviously the managing on the ongoing projects. The report's monthly, and obviously we just received another monthly report from our Public Works Director, and as she noted, 91% of the funds have been procured and 68 have been invoiced and expended. Under the strategic plan, scope will be presented to town meeting for funded. That obviously occurred at the October fall town meeting, where $125,000 was appropriated. The next goal of that was to finalize the RFP. That obviously has been completed with the appointment of the Strategic Plan Steering Committee, which began its meetings in January, and the RFP was issued at the end of February and obviously awarded, which then brought you to the next part of that goal, which was the execute the plan development. Everything has been awarded. The initial meeting with Barry Dunn was held last week. I think it was a very productive initial meeting. In fact, I was on a telephone call along with Evan Belansky, our Community Development Director, with the project manager, just sort of doing a project timeline, which will be presented to the committee. Messages is the project was scheduled to be completed in a 12-month period, so as we're sitting here a year from now, it should be completed. They're realistic, and I expect the committee will approve the timetables for sessions in October and then another one in November, so that the plan sort of comes into draft development stage after the beginning of the calendar year, and then once that gets vetted, then again everything wraps up by next May. So I think the consultant is mindful, as we discussed with the committee, of where we're starting, and obviously it's very difficult to get community input during the summer months in terms of forums, but survey and other documents will be taking place. So again, that's moving forward. Stormwater, sewer, and drainage, the inflow reductions, about continuing to plan to reduce the inflow and the bi-monthly reports to the select board. Again, you're aware of the voluntary sump pump disconnection program. I've sent you the monthly sewer flow reports, and DPW Director Christine Clancy comes in periodically and provides periodic updates with a little more detail, but again, I think we're on top of that issue. In terms of the continuing the plan to reduce infiltration, I think it's the same thing. The DPW has procured the initial stage of the manhole cover replacement, and they're utilizing the sewer capacity transfer program. We have projects that have been executed in the town center and in Drum Hill. Those had to do with dining establishments, obviously the brewery in the center, and then the new restaurant that's coming in Drum Hill. So again, things are on target for that. In terms of continuing to reserve and allocate limited capacity for development and biweekly reports, again, it's part of this whole process, and she was last year with the report at your April 22nd meeting. last month. In terms of the MWRA option, you approved a $40,000 in ARPA funding to explore the option of connecting to the MWRA along the Route 3 corridor, and that project is being procured. Regional cooperation.
Paul?
Yes, go ahead.
On the MWRA, so we do the 40,000 to do the feasibility study, and then the next step after that is more of like a strategic discussion, right? If it, I mean, if it's deemed unfeasible, we're done, but if
Right.
it's deemed feasible, then we're
Then we have to have
more at a
more-
strategic discussion. of
Exactly, yeah,
How do
in
we
terms of-
want to proceed, or
how-
if we want to?
Exactly.
Okay,
But first,
thank
we got to
you.
find out technically, is it feasible and around what range of ballpark are we talking, if it can occur. In terms of regional cooperation with our partners, at my request, NIMCOG held a regional meeting with the municipal users of the wastewater system 2 weeks ago to discuss the sewer capacity limitations and the consent order, as we talked about earlier this evening, about the sewer rates and the plant, and a more detailed meeting is being scheduled. So we're really bringing in NIMCOG into this process. In terms of infrastructure maintenance, the biggest one on that, continuing the capital plan for sewer, the Kensington Road sewer pump station upgrade was approved at spring annual town meeting, which is again part of the sewer long-term capital improvements plan. Utilities, double poles, as you know, you've had a number of meetings with National Grid. They're now providing the double pole report on a monthly basis, so basically the beginning of every month, they are sending me a report. I received the one for May, but it was not quite different than the one you'd received 2 weeks ago in April, so we didn't present it this evening. But we'll see where we are in June, and I think you're seeing progress made. How it comes at our end is we take those reports once they're initially received, and then I send them to the DPW director. They contact our vendor, for fiber relocation and make sure that things are on status. So I think you've seen the trend that the number is going down. Regarding power charging stations, we did receive a earmark in the House budget for a rapid charge electric vehicles station at the Adams Library, and we're also pursuing grant funding for additional electric vehicle charging stations here at this building and other municipal locations. Underground utilities project, as was touched on briefly earlier this evening, this is a work in progress to solve the Verizon funding shortfall, which is what's inhibiting this project from occurring. Communication concerns, again, with the utilities, you've held the meetings with National Grid. I can tell you that the department heads and I are in regular communication with National Grid regarding the enhancements to the Concord Road electricity substation. It recently went before the Board of Appeals for variance, and I think it'll go smoothly. I think what you have seen, and what was evidence of that, was the one that was on Chelmsford Street by the Dunkin' Donuts is gone. I mean, that's closed, and I think that was a successful effort, where it sort of happened without any fanfare. And I think that the communication is continuing, and I think they're mindful of the aesthetics and such on Concord Road as their expansion there.
Hey, Paul?
Yeah.
On the first one, I get it's a work in progress. What do you see as like our next steps? Do we have any?
As I mentioned at the last meeting, I think there's three options. One is funding. In other words, we develop an alternative funding source, and the only alternative, as I mentioned at a recent meeting, would be community preservation funds to fund the Verizon portion. Two is to get some legislative change in terms of how do you fund a system that's in the millions of dollars when your revenue source is less than $100,000 per year. That's why and if you're in Verizon's shoes, you're not going to take that expense on either. So there has to be a legislative solution, and the third option is to just play hardball and then basically give a letter of direction to Verizon saying, well, there's nothing in the legislation that says that you have to recover your costs within a certain period, therefore proceed with the project but that's just that's just trying to fight with Verizon lawyers, which is probably not productive. So those are what I see as the options at this point. On the lighting policy, that one was pretty succinct. The idea was to develop a criteria and implementation of a policy for advocacy lighting on municipal properties, And as you know, it became evident early on in the process that the town zoning bylaws regulate exterior lighting. And in fact, Kelly Beatty was at the last planning board meeting looking to amend the town's exterior lighting policy, but I don't think he had this in mind for lighting monuments. What he really wants to do is, with the advent of LED lighting, and it's really to enhance more restrictions. But in terms of this goal, I think that pretty much, laid that to rest in terms of the lighting policy by the fact that it's regulated by the town's zoning bylaws. Recognition process, we're getting to ones that were adopted and completed. This board, in terms of defining the different levels of recognition that were available, you adopted a policy for monuments and memorials. And then similarly, in terms of providing recognition, you also adopted a recognition policy. So again, those were completed within the last few months. Performance reviews, revising the town manager's performance evaluation form and the timeline and process. You achieved that. You established a timeline and a process for the town manager's performance appraisal, and then below it, also for the town accountant. And in fact, it's in process as we speak now. We received notice, and so that's, again, I think, accomplished. Process improvements for town departments. This is a gap analysis for departments. Early in the year, we explained about the health department examining its process for delivering community assistance. And they've, again, gathering data. Public Works, adopted a program on CDL licenses with an in-house program, which has been launched and been successful. And then the most recent one, which was one you approved last month in terms of ARPA funding, was $35,000 for the gap analysis of the various bylaws and regulations pertaining to protection of the town's groundwater and drinking water. And I sent you earlier by email, the end of last week, an example of how cognizant and present that really is. And this Wednesday's planning board meeting, it's going to come up again about, the peer review and the consultant of this whole issue of the PFAS contamination, the groundwater protection, as it pertains to 93 Burke-Kiln Road development. So again, I think, the issue of an important challenge has been recognized, and I think progress is being made on that. For the gap analysis for the prove the front end for the town's capital projects. We did a restructuring between the library position of facilities and the DPW to improve the procurement of facility projects. Our biggest challenge is finding somebody to take on that role. We've procured this position, believe it or not, 3 times unsuccessfully, not finding a viable candidate. And we've changed the title, we've changed some of the wording, but the best thing to do is not to force a hire. We thought we had an individual, then the person didn't show to begin the work, and then again, it's just anyway. But that it's a good example of how we executed, but it just didn't achieve the result thus far. But it's going to happen under the execution. Parks and Rec, in terms of an updated directory, that was completed back in the second quarter for the inventory of parks and recreation sites on the town's website. And then the other one, which is current, is the updating of the open space and recreation plan to support the Conservation Commission's formation of a committee to complete that task. That committee has been appointed. They've contracted with NIMCOG, and the committee is meeting. Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, providing support for that committee, assisting with the outreach of available sustainable resources, and coordinating with that committee as requested. The big one that is in works right now is the state's Municipal Vulnerability Program, MVP 2.0 initiative, that includes, CS representatives. We've had several meetings with the program administrators and consultants, and that includes myself, Christine Clancy, our Public Works Director, Evan Belansky, as well as volunteers from across the community, including CS. We're assembling a survey that will be issued out to the community to develop a pilot climate change project. We're also partnering with CS to promote an energy efficiency grant program for small businesses. I signed a letter of support that I think is being distributed under the energy efficiency program that's funded through the utilities. In terms of partnering with CS for outreach and listening sessions and providing information to residents, Again, this effort of myself, the Public Works Director and Community Development Director are working with CS to promote their climate change initiatives, tree planting and enhanced energy code in the community. Recreation fields, courts, and spaces, pickleball and cricket, identifying a demand for the spaces and identifying locations. You heard earlier this evening, it came up as most recently with the Coolest Farm Task Force. Pickleball is under active consideration. The two main areas that are focusing on right now, the big one is the McCarthy School site. That site is now cleared, meaning ready for new work to take place. The DPW over the winter months when it was quiet removed the old asphalt material, and I expect that when I last spoke to Dr. Lang, he's re-engaging that committee in hopes of bringing something to fall town meeting to move that project forward. And then a more minor project, one that's going to be happening in the next several weeks, is at the South Row School. We're relining the tennis courts there for not only tennis but also for pickleball. So that way, when that's completed, there'll actually be 8 pickleball courts concurrent with the 4 tennis courts. Basically, each side of the tennis court, of the 4 tennis courts, will have a pickleball court. So that would give them 8 playing areas. And then the other one we've thrown out is the corner here, McFarland and Chelmsford Street. DPW engineering has determined that you could actually fit a pickleball court adjacent to the fitness court, parallel with Wilson Street. So in other words, you wouldn't encroach any further in on the softball field. It's sort of that little corner that's vacant behind the fitness court. So that's under consideration as well. No advances really on cricket. There is demand for field space, where in terms of playing fields, rectangular fields, and whether it be cricket or soccer and so forth. And that's a major challenge in terms of finding land that's flat and available. McCarthy and South Row Fields and Court. Again, I just alluded to this, is bringing the new plan to McCarthy at the fall town meeting, and as I mentioned, the South Row Court for pickleball and tennis. Personnel rules and regulations. The chair provided you the report on the revisions at your November 20th meeting last fall. And again, support is provided when and if needed. The Personnel Board hasn't met since then. They only meet when and if needed. So that's what that occurs. In terms of outward communication, news flow from our website, we have made improvements quietly to the town's website on the pages for the senior center and the building department, and we're tackling others as you move along. We're scheduled to do a full revamp of our website in the upcoming fiscal year, but in the meantime, we work with this Compete Now for short money to do some updates to the layout of the senior center and building department website, and so far they seem to be well received and easier to navigate. And then social media, again, we continue to use news flashes through Facebooks and Twitter to get the word out in terms of outward communication. And that's outward communication. We're not engaging on comments on Facebook, as you probably have noticed recently, because that's sort of like that's a rabbit hole that would utilize resources that we can better use elsewhere. Going back to the discussion we heard earlier on the town's website about the townofchelmsford.us domain, it's still embedded in our data links, and we just don't have the resources to update all those links. So that's where that stands, and I think over time we'll just kind of weed those out, but we still do have that underlying townofchelmsford.us domain. Road and sidewalk infrastructure, on the benchmark report, again, our Public Works Director was here, I think just over a month or so ago, maybe 2 now, presenting the 2024 road season sidewalk construction plans. She also appeared at the school committee meeting, presented those plans. They're posted and available on the town's website. And again, I think as she noted in her report, we're making progress there. on 54 Richardson Road, the PFAS remediation. Paul McKinley was here, as you know, your last meeting. He's completed all the required filings with the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, and has provided periodic reports. And obviously it demonstrates the progress with the remediation system. And as you know, as he explained at the last meeting, he'll be coming forth with additional work in order to meet the new upcoming standards. Fire Station Study Committee, they provided an update at your December 18th meeting and at the spring annual town meeting. And then the recommendation to act upon the recommendation from the committee. I think the last discussion we had is they were going to come in July, June.
I think we're going to try to come in June,
June,
but just with people's schedules, it might be early July, but I think we can shoot for June.
Yeah, the key there is to get on the ballot for the November election, you have to notify the Secretary of State's office by August 5th. So that's the hard deadline if you're going to move forward with that project as a debt exclusion. And so again, they'll be presenting here in June or July. Warren Pole Farm, as we touched upon earlier this evening, Carl Bischoff, the Conservation Committee, provided a status report at the January 22nd meeting, and he will be here probably by the end of next month with the final document. They're working out that final language on that meadow, and then that would be then sent to the state for review and approval. On traffic issues, again, as you had this evening, the Traffic Safety Committee quarterly reports, the issues with Ledge Road and the quarries, and other concerns that are, that come up are presented to the board. Again, with any of these other things, aside from the truck traffic, but even general safety concerns, the same process. And then obviously intersections, they're all wrapped together. In terms of the Center for the Arts Strategy and Sustainability, Lauren Cochran, the director, provided you with a report at your November 6th meeting. She's due to come back in next month, sort of as a year-end wrap, as part of the, we've obviously funded her in the upcoming budget. I spoke to Darlene last week as we're monitoring stuff, and they're still running in the black in their programs, and I think I think they seem to be on solid footing at this point. MBTA zoning, you're very familiar with this. It was adopted at town meeting. The overlay district bylaw has been submitted to the Attorney General's office for approval. Once this occurs, which is basically 90 days from the submittal, which would be probably midsummer, after that period of time, you can modify the project development agreement on Princeton Street to achieve compliance with the provisions of state law. And then the sheltering of homeless and refugees. Again, we're continuing to monitor this, and again, Chelmsford case on this has been the state does not integrate the sheltering of homeless individuals and migrant families. Therefore, we continue to be the location for the homeless individuals at the hotel on Chelmsford Street, known as the Best Western, although the sign's been covered. That is the busy site now for police and fire response, and as well as the health department. But again, there have been no issues in terms of the impacts from the families. That's all been really targeted to the Lowell area, as you've been probably reading and know about. So there hasn't been any issues beyond what we've been accustomed to now for the last few years. Central Square, the mobile site, former mobile site, where this is at is the Community Development Director, Evan Belansky, communicated with Global over a month ago now. Supposedly they had an agreement to sell the land. It fell through. They informed us that they'll be sending the town a proposal to acquire the site for nominal dollars. We're just waiting for that document. The problem with that is it's like any other big conglomerate is trying to get them to move. It's kind of the same reason why the Freight House is still on School Street. It's just the frustrations.
Is that did that just happen?
Which one's that?
I feel like we just spoke about that like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it just happened. We're just waiting for the terms letter.
So they did say they would send us one.
Yeah, but we haven't received it.
Oh, God.
But then again, as we saw in the Freight House, they reached. Did you hear the story on that? They reached an agreement with with Pan Am. And then at the end, they said, but now you got to get the agreement from Boston and Maine Railroad. And they're like, there's a Boston and Maine Railroad still? So anyway, it's moving along, but it's just very slow with a small resource for a big company that has a lot of holdings. And then the issue of beautification, again, related to that is we will continue our efforts to plant trees and or beautify the vacant parcel. Because what happens now is when the weeds start growing, that's when the complaints pick up. Tree plantings, the North Road tree planting has not occurred. We have obtained legislative earmarks for the North Chelmsford Middlesex Street, which is our environmental justice area. That was included in the House of Representatives proposed FY25 budget. And then
I thought the environmental justice area was up on Smith Street. Is this a different one?
It depends upon how you're defining it. And what I'm saying by that is the environmental justice zone, is it based upon income level, or is it based upon ethnicity? And so when we were doing this MVP training, we've seen different maps that show environmental justice areas of the town. So we think that, we'll be able to get to the Middlesex, North Chelmsford, Smith Street area with this.
Through the legislative.
Through the legislative effort, yeah.
And the first one, North Road, that was North Road coming out of Chelmsford Center?
Yeah, it's from the center, from the highway off-ramp into the center.
And is it funding that's holding us back?
And just DPW's bandwidth, quite frankly. But the big funding thing is National Grid, and that's the last one, is they still have not released the funding they promised, the town, and that's been going on for several months now. So we're
For the trees?
For the trees.
50, there was like 50
yes,
80
exactly.
trees or something
We've
like
not
that, right?
We've not been able to obtain that funding, so we may call them and ask them for a meeting if we don't get a breakthrough in the next 2 months.
That'll come right after double poles.
Double
then,
poles,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Where's the money for the trees? And I think that's it. That's the last part of the goal report.
Okay, any questions on all those goals? We're making good progress on many of them, so that's good. Okay, we don't have any minutes this evening, so we're to liaison reports and referrals. So Pat, we'll let you go first.
Yeah, the only thing I have this week is we have a meeting Wednesday at 1 o'clock with the general contractor from North Fire, hopefully to get a final resolve to the defective siding issues. So we look forward to hopefully getting that put to bed and having an approach and putting a schedule together for when the work can be completed. So I'll have more at the next meeting. That's it.
Okay, thank you. George? Okay, Aaron? Virginia?
Paul and I and others participated in NIMCOG public input session on digital equity. So they are in the process of going to all the communities that they serve and getting inputs on how do they improve digital equity, which is, access to the internet and all the things that come with that, looking at how do we reach underserved areas, underserved communities. Do you want to add anything?
No.
And also the Vinyl Square focus group for the clock met, and you can probably expect to see some things coming from them later this year for fundraising. When they were here before, they said they would do fundraising to pay for the clock. Paul mentioned the strategic plan kickoff with Barry Dunn. The Fire Station Study Committee, we are going to try to get here in June, early July at the latest. And also Tim Powerley at the Permanent Building Committee agreed to have a joint meeting on Tuesday. Some of the members of the Fire Station Study Committee just wanted an opportunity to speak with the Permanent Building Committee about considerations for stick versus modular build, reliability, some things they're personally experiencing with both of those types of construction. So that's really the only point there, is to look at the Weston and Sampson recommendations and allow them some opportunity to give the building committee some input. I have a question about a future agenda, the sewer rate discussion just reminded me, when was the last time, Paul, that we reviewed our non-resident fee structure for licensing and things like that? And is it time maybe to look at bumping those up again? I remember we had a meeting, I think it was, I think it was not, well, the sewer fees are levied on residents, right? I'm saying other fee structures that we have in town where we collect revenue with inflation and everything. Should we look at how do we, Christina did a really nice analysis, I think a couple years ago, comparing like our fees to other municipalities, and we made some adjustments. And I'm just wondering if it would be worth looking at that again.
Yeah, I think as we go, yes.
Maybe towards later this year. But that was just a
That
thought
could
I
be
had.
on our goals.
Huh?
That could be another goal.
Yeah.
And that's all I have. I'll let you talk about the peace officer.
The peace office.
The peace officer ceremony.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to mention anything about it because we do that every year, but,
Go for it.
okay. Last Wednesday was, May 15th was Peace Officers Memorial Day, so there was a short ceremony over at Forefathers Cemetery to honor Officer Donald Adams, who was the only Chelmsford police officer to date who has been killed while on duty. He was shot while pursuing a bank robber on a trolley headed into Lowell. So we have had, I think the chief may have mentioned, or maybe it was in the thing that you read last meeting, 3 officers who did die of heart attacks while on duty. So they were also recognized during that ceremony. So a couple other things. I've been to 3 ribbon cuttings since our last meeting. The first one was at Grace Point Church, which is on Academy Street. They're doing a lot of outreach, so if you're looking for a new church, you could try them out. Enterprise Bank up in Drumhill had a ribbon cutting for their totally renovated branch building there. So if you need some money, you can stop by there. And this morning, we had a ribbon cutting at Simply Kamai, which is a new restaurant on Summer Street. They have really good food, Cambodian focus. This is their second location. They also have a restaurant in Lowell, and I think they'll be very, very successful. While we were doing a ribbon cutting, there were people coming in already, so that was good. Last week, we had 2 new firefighters who graduated from the police academy, firefighter Michael Noon and Nicholas Spinelli. So they will be on the firefighter force and responding to calls around town. And also congratulations to Bernie Reddy, who was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Historical Society last week for all the work he has done with historical structures and other events and things around town. So congratulations to Bernie. I just wanted to mention too that at our next meeting on June 3rd, it's going to be we will be starting to do some reappointments for boards and committees. I know a lot of people have already been reached out to see if they want to get reappointed, so we're going to do that. But as part of that, since we're doing since we're doing appointments, as you know, we're also responsible for town council. I'd like to consider what we have with town council, if maybe it's, if we want to stay with Paul Haverty's firm or consider another firm. So we can do it one of 2 ways. We could either, since I didn't get it on the agenda for tonight, we can discuss that at our next meeting, or I could bring forward maybe executive summaries from 2 or 3 firms to see if we want to consider somebody else. So we can, I think, say how we want to go on that. Any thoughts?
I think we should have a discussion on what we want to do before we start bringing
Okay.
in.
All right, we'll put that on the agenda then. That'll be on our agenda for our next meeting. So I think that's,
The mass housing thing?
I was going to do that off.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I just don't want I think, we probably let the community know that we've received an application for 40B housing
Okay, yeah.
on River Neck Road at the former Mercury Computer Site, 199-201 River Neck Road, to construct 300 affordable rental housing units. We received a letter today that basically, from the state, looking for comments from the town by Wednesday, June 19th.
Okay, but
No, but I just want people to be aware
Okay,
of
but
it.
I think we shouldn't give out dates because we're going to change
I
those
just want
dates.
people to be aware of the fact that this is out there, and more importantly, the application is on the town's website.
Okay.
So if people want to look up River Neck Road, it's on the town's website for affordable housing project, because I know word has been getting out. I know the Lowell Sun has knowledge of the project. We've sent them the copies of the application to department heads and to boards, but I just want people to be aware that, don't want people to think that we're not being transparent.
If we're going to talk about scheduling, can't we just do it now?
Sure. I mean, I guess especially since Pat is here. Okay.
Right.
So they did, in their letter, they did propose a site walk visit on May 30th, and for this letter to be sent to them by June 19th. As far as May 30th for a site walk, I'm not available. Virginia, I know you're not, and Paul is not. I was going to write back and propose to them the following week, either that Wednesday or Thursday, June 5th or 6th. This is not a required meeting or anything like that you have to go to. It's for us to go out and see the site if you want to, if you have the time, and if you want to do that, if you're available. So, any sense for June 5th or 6th?
In the morning?
Usually it's in the morning.
I would prefer, both those. Are you okay on either of those mornings?
The 6th is better than the 5th.
Okay.
But
The same here.
Okay,
I'll
me
make
too.
I'll make
June
either
6th.
work, but the 6th is better.
Okay, all right, so I'll ask them to do June 6th instead. And then, because of the close timeline to our next meeting, I don't think it's practical to have all the department heads and commissioners that need to give their input to get those to us in time to get on our agenda for our meeting for June 3rd. So, and our next meeting after that isn't until June 24th. So it's impossible for us to get a letter to them for June 19th. So I was going to also see if we can push that back a week until June 26th, which would be 2 days after our June 24th meeting, if that.
So would June 24th also be the public input date? Because we have to do
Yes.
2 weeks to notice that, right? We don't have time to notice it before our next meeting.
Well, we don't have any requirement on that, because this is not a
Not
lip.
a lip. It's not a lip
Oh,
project.
I thought that you tried to
No.
give 2 weeks' notice to the abutters.
Well, we
that
will
were
send
gonna
notice
take.
out, but we can get that out.
It's not a
as-
requirement, yeah. Yeah, so that will give us more flexibility to get the notice out to the abutters.
So if you,
But the only meeting, in other words, if the site visit is on June 6th, the only discussion the board will have will be on the 24th.
the 20, that's what I'm wondering.
And I think we can let the butters know that that's when the board will be considering it and assembling its comments that evening.
Are you comfortable turning a letter around by June 26, Pat, or do you want to have the board, like in the past, the board has looked at the letter before it goes in, and that would push it out further into July, but...
Well, I mean, I could say the end of that week then, because we don't, well, I don't know that
The
I
next
did
time
get
we
that.
meet after that is July 15th.
Right, and I think that's way too long. I think we would be accused of, trying to stall the project. I thought at the last time I created the letter and then sent it to you, and you had some...
No, we looked at the draft in this meeting,
Okay,
and then I sent you comments offline.
okay.
So
I mean, I think we need to be, timely with it. I think if we would wait till the middle of July, there may be some pushback. Paul, I don't know, you probably have more experience with them than
Yeah,
I do.
it's amazing how quick this was turned around.
Yes,
Which I think
absolutely.
indicates something.
So what do we do at the June 24th meeting? We agree on the points that are going to be made in the letter?
Yeah, you'll have the comments from town boards and committees ahead of time. We can send letters out to the abutters and asking them to submit their comments in advance of the meeting or to appear at the meeting. And then I think, as you said, it would give the chair a couple days after the meeting to pull
I
it
would ask
together.
for Friday, the 28th, just to give a little
Yeah,
more
okay.
buffer.
All right. Okay. Anything else? Then we can have another motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I don't know if this requires a roll call vote, but all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks, Pat. We'll let you go.